affirming team to begin their team's case.
I think it's important to note that the comparative that we're dealing with is the fact that they are actually encouraging this language, this AI writing technology on their side of the house. On our side of the house, we absolutely do not stand for this, as we see that it causes a lot of plagiarism, a lot of lack of understanding, a lot of other harmful things that I will be getting into in my speech. Okay, so firstly on our model. So how are we actually going to ban this? Well, we're going to have sort of like AI tracking devices, which are done through systems to identify, okay, so where did this actual piece originate from? Is it in actuality, is it credible? Is it obvious that they changed a few words to make it seem like it was not done through a system? And then secondly, we see that the punishment would just simply be failing the entire assessment or failing the paper. And we see that this would have a lot of influence on students, because obviously students want to pass. So now that we've got our model cleared up, a few things on setup. So firstly on the purpose of secondary and tertiary education. Okay, so secondary education, we see that this is more for developing skills for the future, learning the basics of what's actually necessary and important in university. We see this in reading between, learning how to read between the lines in English and learning how to analyze data in maths. Okay, and then what do we see in tertiary education? We see people gain, the purpose of this is to gain qualifications for a job, so growing our economy, growing our doctors, growing our lawyers, growing our engineers, and super important people in this debate and in our world. Okay, and then what do we see that AI writing technology actually looks like? We see that it's it sources its information from other online regions. It fixes errors such as spelling, grammar, your tone, your points and ideas, your research, your structure, and I will get into how harmful it is later. I will take a point.
So do students use it for things other than just simply writing them essays? They use it for resources, for researching. Would that also be banned on your side?
Yes. So, firstly on what we see, okay, the thing is, AI to write actual assessments, there's a difference between using AI to write actual assessments and research online. They're two different things, as we've just explained on what AI actually is. It's things like ChatGPT and things such as that. Okay, so 2 points I'm going to go over. Firstly, on how it stunts students' growth and development of skills. Secondly, on the quality of work and actual work ethic of these students. Okay, so some context. What is it's a little bit of characterization on what these students actually look like. Well, what do they tend to be influenced by? Well, they want to pass their exams, and because there's so many lectures and stuff, they tend to be very time poor, which is the reason why they tend to actually use AI, is because of laziness, and because they just tend to be more tired because of these things. Okay, so why is it inherently true that it stunts students' development of growth, right? So we see that there's a lack of understanding, first of all, in the sense that it's sort of a shortcut to fix errors. And because it's quick and easy, students are more entitled to actually be used to constantly fixing these errors, which without actually taking into account what they're fixing and how to actually fix it themselves. This is really bad because it is important in future careers to actually learn how to fix these grammatical errors. For example, if you want to write contracts, if you want to be a lawyer, things like that, right? So we've already covered why that's so important. But even if you don't buy that, another reason why it automatically stunts students' development of skills is because of things like unoriginality, right? So what is the thing about originality and why is it so important? Originality is important for one main reason: passion, right? So if you're passionate about like history, for example, right, using ChatGPT or other like devices to write your essay, like originally takes away that passion. It takes away like the actual things that you're counting into your essay, the actual analysis, the reflections, things like that. And you don't listen to this because of how easy and accessible ChatGPT and other AI devices are, because you have like an over-reliance, right? And then thirdly, you also get a lack of reliance on teachers, because like when things are easier on like to write essays and stuff like that, like you tend to not really want to listen to your lecturers, because if you just type in the name of the assessment, it will just like rewrite this and then the assessment will come up. So it just tends to be easier. So what are the impacts of this? Well, we get no interpersonal communication, and we have like students not having like really good like relationships with their teachers, and it's really important that we do have that, just so that like teachers and students are able to engage and are able to learn better and off of each other. We have students not owning their work properly, an over-reliance on ChatGPT and losing their passion of things. We have people unaware of the basics, which is so important, things like sentence structures, things like grammar, things like that, which are crucial for jobs. We have people who like fail to do this. We do not have this in a world where we ban AI of this education. Okay, so before I move on, I can take a point.
There's already like spell check software on Grammarly, Google Docs. How do you think like this would be addressed? So
like, I think that most of the time things like that sort of just assist, but it's different when you're writing a whole essay. Like you can see when it says underlined in red, you can see, oh, that's a spelling error. Oh, this is the right way to spell it. It's different when it's written the entire essay and there's like no bit like there's a lack of mistake. Okay, so secondly, on quality of work and work ethic. So like, why is it true that we get worse quality on their side of the house? Well, firstly, like I said about understanding, right? So when you don't listen to the lecturers and like don't listen to the actual teachers, like the quality of work tends to decrease because you're not actually listening to professionals. You're listening to like an AI source. And the reason why this is inherently bad, moving on to my second reason, and a huge reason why it's so unreliable in the quality of work, is because of misinformation. Like I have said in setup, AI uses sources from the internet. Like, for example, if you're writing a history essay, there's a lot of, we have seen time and time again, the internet tends to be very unreliable with things, as there are people just typing up anything and putting it into Google to make it actually seem more reliable. And so when you're writing your history essay, none of the stuff in the essay might actually be credible, which decreases the quality of work. And thirdly, students are reliant to easy forms of AI to actually pass assignments, which leads to them actually not studying, not listening in class when we see an easy way out. Because as I've said, you could just write the name of the assignment, ask them to rewrite it and stuff like that, and do things like that, which just makes them not want to put the work in, not put their effort in, and that is so harmful. So the impacts of this is we get lazy students, we get bad future doctors, we get bad future lawyers because they do not understand the basics because of the encouragement on AI. But thirdly, we get underprepared students going into university expecting that they're just like, expecting that they'll just be able to actually pass these assessments without putting the actual real work in. This is why we believe the MOOC shall stand proudly.
We'd like to thank the speaker for their speech, and we would welcome the first speaker for the gaming team to begin their team space.
ChatGPT is the biggest jump in AI technology. It is the future. By depriving our students of the opportunity to learn and use this incredible tool, we are depriving them of their future and potentially setting them back the newest advancements for mankind. So let's just clarify the model for a moment. They've said they're only gonna like ban and regulate after assignments are turned in. We think they've misconstrued the motion in this way, which says a ban in secondary schools. It needs to be a flat ban before any assignments are turned in. They need to police that in some way in schools. They need to engage with the model in this way, because on our side of the house, we can still regulate against plagiarism, which is largely what they've talked about. We're just not regulating against the use of AI, right? So if AI is used for plagiarism, we can still stand against that. That's the like clarification, that's the distinction. So what's our burden in today's debate? If we can either prove that the ban is ineffective or that we are actively harming students, we win this debate. So 4 points today. Firstly, why the ban is ineffective. Secondly, how AI acts as a tool for students. Thirdly, why AI plagiarism is easily detectable. Fourthly, how this ban halts AI development. Firstly, on the why the ban is ineffective. So what do bans in school look like for students, right? When they've actually when they're punished for doing things that are banned. Firstly, they get detentions when they're caught. Secondly, their devices are taken away. Thirdly, they get an instant failed grade in the cases of plagiarism. Fourthly, sometimes it can even appear on your record if it's really harmful. Fifthly, they might get suspensions if it's ongoing. So what ways can students circumvent this ban? Firstly, VPNs or mobile data, school restrictions don't work, right? Because what are they going to do? They're going to block the IP addresses of these AI, but what are students going to do? They're going to get VPNs. They're going to use their mobile data to circumvent this. And also schools lack funding for the sufficient technology required to completely ban it and make sure no students are using this. Secondly, kids can use it at home, right? You can only police it at school. Home is out of the jurisdiction of these schools. These students are still able to use this AI at home and reap all of the rewards, all of the harms they've talked about on their side. So why are they likely to circumvent the ban? This is important. Firstly, they don't care about the rules. A few reasons for this. Firstly, they're adolescents, they're young, they're still developing. Secondly, schools sometimes have pointless rules. Students break them a lot anyway. They don't respect the authority. The rules about hair color are just kind of silly, and they're likely to go against these rules. We think they're likely to go against this as well. Thirdly, there are inconsistencies between teachers when following the rules, right? Because these teachers aren't going to always uphold the same rules to the same degree. Teachers have to be policing this as well. That's where their side falls short in terms of the model. They have to talk about how the ban is sufficient. Fourthly, we don't think they'll especially get punished anyway, and I've already told you why, right? It's incredibly easy for them. So secondly, these students are incredibly tech savvy. They're kids, they grew up with the internet, they know how to circumvent these bans. Thirdly, it brings attention to these AI bots. When this ban is announced, everyone is then going to know about it. Everyone is going to think it's the new thing. Those students that didn't know about it or never have used it before, they're far more likely to now just because of so much press it's getting. Fourthly, the academic pressures of school, they talked about this a little bit, but AI is easy, it's fast, and when assessments pile up, they're far more likely to use it. So we established that students have the incentive and capacity to circumvent this. That means the ban is ineffective. So what does this mean for the students? Firstly, it means that they're breaking the rules, they're using these AI bots. Secondly, more people are being punished when they're caught, right? Because even if you're using it for just your education, using it as a resource, you're still going to be punished for it because they need to have a flat out ban. And this takes time away from teachers to regulate this. So why is this incredibly important? Firstly, because it's ineffective. It's a waste of resources. Teachers have to regulate this. Time and effort is going to this. Secondly, you have to use money to somehow use this ban. We think this money is better spent elsewhere, actually facilitating resources for the kids, getting books for these children, going on school trips, having facilities at school. Secondly, student well-being is incredibly harmed. At the point at which you're punishing students for even just using it as a resource when it's not a detriment to their education, we think that's harmful. On our side, we don't get these harms. We use this money elsewhere. Students are able to use the chat, and but they're able to use it far more beneficially. So second, how AI acts as a tool for students. So how are students currently using AI? Firstly, for research assignments, for prompts on what questions you can ask for your thesis statement. Secondly, practicing skill-based questions, how to solve complex math problems. Thirdly, revising, getting it to give you flashcards, getting feedback on essays from AI. So how is AI beneficial to students? Firstly, it acts as another resource. It simplifies resources. It collates information. It gives you different perspectives. Secondly, it's incredibly efficient, right? Students are busy. It's easy to get this information. It's very fast. Thirdly, it assists teachers because at the point at which teachers have 40 kids in a classroom, we think this is able to extend their education and be incredibly beneficial to them because it's another resource. Fourthly, it assists thinking skills because skill-based problems at high levels require additional help, right? It explains these mathematical processes and not just like the steps to solving them or the like skills required. It explains them to a high degree, which we think sometimes teachers aren't able to do. Fifthly, it's a starting place for more research on a problem. Yes, I'll take a PR.
Why is a kid inclined to look at the reason how something works if it just gives them the answer straight away?
Because we think like these tests about when we look at math tests, like for externals, you're not gonna be able to use AI, so they're incentivized to learn those skill-based issues and like how to like solve math equations that have different processes, so they can know how to use it in like a context where there is no technology to help them. So what does this mean for students? Firstly, it's a tool for learning. Secondly, teachers will employ it as a tool, right? They're going to teach kids how to use it for their subject. They're going to teach them how to reference it and not just like be disingenuous and plagiarize. They're going to control how it's used and use it productively. And note that they're not taught to just take it as canon. It's not the gospel truth. Because sometimes AI is wrong. Teachers are able to tell their students this. They're able to communicate. And this is critical for AI because we cannot just keep letting these students get away with the ban and say, yes, absolutely, everything is right. That's why we're banning it. No, sometimes AI gets it wrong. These teachers facilitate that learning through that way and teach students that actually it's not all right. So why is this important? Firstly, AI is the future. It's getting massive amounts of funding, advancements, information, research. We need to stop kids from using it. Stop kids from using it is like incredibly disadvantaging them. Thirdly, on why AI plagiarism is easily detectable. So what is the nature of this AI software? Firstly, generated response. Secondly, it's short, concise, structured. Thirdly, sometimes it is wrong. Fourthly, it's stylistically similar each time you give it a prompt. Fifthly, it doesn't use incredibly sophisticated language. Most likely, it puts things into layman's terms. So how can teachers detect AI plagiarism? Firstly, so plagiarism is just when you like copy things, right? It's when you give a prompt for an essay, you copy it into your assignment. Firstly, they know their students, they know the students' writing styles, they're able to compare works. Secondly, they know ChatGPT. It's like, and if we look at ChatGPT, it always spits things out in an American style. They're able to like make distinctions. And they're able to check AI with the prompt they gave their students to see if they've like just blatantly copied it. Thirdly, there are AI checkers. They're becoming more advanced. We can check for plagiarism. Fourthly, we can have like more paper-focused assessments to like take away from this if it's really that big of an issue. Fifthly, there are inaccuracies in AI. When students use those inaccuracies, teachers are going to be able to pick them up. They're like educated in that field. So what does this mean for schools? Firstly, they don't need the ban, right? We can still regulate plagiarism and not need a ban, and we still all get all of the benefits on our side of the house of AI, and none of the harms and all these resources going towards this, like trying to regulate this. So students who cheat, right, are still held accountable. Most students, however, can use it as a tool and not be disadvantaged. The comparative is, firstly, teachers are reliant on a ban that doesn't work. They're just going to palm off responsibility if they're using it. Secondly, more kids are cheating. It's harder for teachers to regulate it, even if they're trying to. So proud to oppose.
We thank the speaker for their speech, and we invite the second speaker of the affirming team to continue the team's case.
Panel, here is what you now believe in this debate because the negating team was unable to actually respond to this material. Firstly, this AI stunts students developing skills. We heard absolutely no response from the negating team on this. Not a single point was challenged. No, they didn't contain anything, pretty much leaving it open in the debate, which means you all still believe this still stands in the debate. Secondly, that the quality of work and the students' work ethic is extremely harmed. Again, no response from the affirmative team, actually no engagement with this. They simply said one clarification as a response to our entire case, meaning everything still stands, everything is still strong in this debate for you, the panel. Two things in this debate. Firstly, clashes on which side benefits students and is AI is AI able to be reliably checked? And secondly, a few points of analysis in the debate to clarify a few things. Firstly, on clashes. First class, which side better benefit students? From the negating team, we hear this line of logic that AI is the future, that we should be actually encouraging the use of it in our schools. We hear a few reasons for this. They say that the ban would be ineffective because students are able to use this at home, that schools can't reliably check for this, all these kinds of things. And then again in the speech, he goes on to say that we are readily able to find AI already in the status quo. He contradicts his entire case in the first 2 points they have by saying that it's not easy to find and then saying it's easy to find. Complete contradiction. And a few responses to this is that we see already in the status quo, as he stated himself, we are able to find and detect much easily. He also referred to it as some sort of resourceful tool that kids can use to do research and learning. We see alternatives to this. A teacher, which is the job of a teacher to teach and help these students learn. A teacher, the main thing that we use to learn education, we have way better alternatives on outside the house, alternatives that don't baby our students, that don't just feed them all the answers. We see this as exclusive to our side and an exclusive benefit that only we can have when we ban this AI. They also talked a lot about how they can use it to they use it as more of a tool that can feed them prompts and just gives them resources. We see this as a few responses to this. We see this as inaccurate. What we see in the status quo is that students are predominantly using these kinds of AIs like ChatGPT, all these other sorts of writing AIs to do exactly that. Write essays and all these kinds of things. The way they are negating team characterizes AI is completely false. They don't accurately tell us what AI is. They kind of dance around the idea. They say you can use it in English and then you can use it to do math problems. Where's the logical link? The negating team fails to actually prove anything in their first speech, not only by contradicting themselves within their first two substantive materials, but B, failing to engage with anything we have brought up, which is why it also stands, and C, because a lot of their case is based on mischaracterizations of a lot of things. They also talked a lot about how schools will waste a lot of resources enforcing this ban because it'll be a lot harder for teachers because they have to do all this grading and all these other things, which was another big push that the first negating speaker made. Again, he negates this in his own speech by saying how easy it is to detect this AI and all of this kind of stuff. All this kind of stuff, and then he goes on to say that students will still use it anyway because they're adolescents, and that they will still ignore the ban because, well, they don't care if they're students. A few responses to this. Firstly, our first speaker gave you a clear incentive for students not to use it, because obviously if you use this on an assessment, an important assessment, you're gonna get not only fail, but there's a lot of harmful repercussions that could befall the student. Secondly, as we stated, if it's so easy to find, as they said, then obviously when they found out, they'll obviously be found out and then banned anyway. So that also doesn't stand. What this means is that at the end of this clash, we've won, and a lot of their major material falls out of this debate, whereas our material still stands. Secondly, on the clash of which, how easy it is to identify the use of AI. Again, they say that we can identify a lot of the plagiarisms. Firstly, the first speaker again contradicts himself a lot, saying that it's harder to identify the AI. It's hard to identify AI, and then went on to say that it's actually easy to find the AI, which is a bit strange. He also said he uses it as a tool for research to make all these questions and all these other things. But then said AI is an unreliable resource for all these things, which contradicts themselves. There's not much engagement in this clash, and so as for that, we win that clash as well. On to a point of analysis on how we are, on which can actually better benefit students for the real world. What we hear from the negating side is that AI is the future, that we're holding our students back by not actually letting them use these kind of AI resources. They don't really give any clear analysis behind or why letting them use the AI actually benefits them for when they go into the real world. Simply saying, because it's the future, AI is so modern and futuristic, because these students using them, it's gonna make them somehow more ready for the real world. Yes.
Yeah. So I said it's easy to detect plagiarism, not when students use it as a resource. This does not mean we stop plagiarizing on our side of the house but reap all the benefits of AI.
Could you state that one more time?
Yeah, I said it's easy to detect plagiarism, not when students use it as a resource. Does this not mean we get all the benefits of, we stop plagiarism, but get all of the benefits of using AI as a resource, as a learning tool?
I am not exactly sure what that means. I think you should answer it in your own speech. Again, it's a very silly POA. The logic is, if you're using it as plagiarism and then a resource, like if you're using it as, you can detect the plagiarism, but you're using it as a resource. It's odd. I think you should tell your second speaker to answer that for you. Onto my analysis. Okay, so we see is that as my first speaker went over, when we encourage our students to use these kinds of AIs, what we're doing is building and instilling bad habits into them. Lazy work ethic, all these kinds of things that are very detrimental when you enter the real world, when you have to get a job, work hard, all these kinds of things. What this means is we're not actually improving anything. We're instilling them with these bad values, with poor work ethic, which means when they when they move from secondary school into tertiary education, studying, we get subpar doctors, subpar lawyers, all these fields that require high skill, high brain power, not high AI power. When we get them in these fields, what we see is a lack of skill, lack of analysis, because they were able to use AI in all of their assignments. They were using them and incentivized as the negating team said, it's the future, let's use it. But what they neglect is all the detriments that come along. We get less skilled workers on their side of the house, whereas on our side of the house, we retain skilled workers with high work ethic that actually want to try and achieve high, not on the C's get degrees kind of mentality, not on this kind of cruisy. We want doctors that want to save lives, lawyers that want to keep people free. This is why you should side with side affirming.
We thank the speaker for his speech, and we welcome the second speaker of the negating team to continue their team's case.
What are we seeing more and more in the curriculums of today's schools? We're seeing teaching around critical thinking skills, around how to pick information from the Google, from articles that you're looking at online, and deciding where it's credible and where it's not credible. Where is this information valid? Where is it coming from good sources? Where is it not? This is information that teachers are teaching in schools now. Why do we think that is? Because of the technology revolution that we've had, because now we have all of this Google, all of this internet, this whole new way that we can access and research, this whole new way we can interact with information. We're seeing that in our schools now. This revolution is just going to happen again because technology is evolving. We're going to get more critical thinking in schools. That's really good. 3 points in the speech. First of all, point of clash on why AI doesn't stunt learning. Second of all, point of clash on the benefits of AI usage in schools. And third of all, how this ban halts the development of artificial intelligence. First of all, why AI doesn't stunt learning. Now, just note, we heard from the second speaker, a little bit of pushback that we didn't respond to any of their case. Let's just note that we implicitly responded to the majority of what they brought us at first through our own case, which was preemptively responsive to that. Okay, so what do they say here? They say that this stunts the basic skills like grammar, spelling, maths, all of these basics, right? But firstly, as I signaled in a POI, people already use software like Grammarly, like Google Docs spelling check software. Like, they don't necessarily, in today's age where we have all this technology, that we already see like literacy rates are quite low. We think this is symmetric on both sides of the house. There are still tools for students to use to do that. In terms of maths, they have access to calculators, things like photo maths on Snapchat, where they can just like take a photo of the math problem and it will calculate it for them. We think that like we can't ban all of these things. We're not proposing any kinds of bans for that on either side of the house. So why should we be banning this ChatGPT AI? But why is AI different to these things? Why is AI better than these kinds of software? Because firstly, it doesn't just give an answer, just like the first Firming wanted to characterize it to you, because it doesn't. It explains its reasoning first. The way ChatGPT works as a software is that it's working in real time, and it gives you the information in real time. So you can't just like read the final bit first. The final bit will be the answer. What you have to do is you have to read through its process, its own thought process, as it's working that problem out, right? So what you're getting from that is so much better from just putting that information into a calculator, putting that information into a spell check. You're seeing the thought process that this AI is going through. This is a thought process that you can then relate to your own working, and so the next time you're in that position and you don't have AI, you can remember what was the thought process that the AI used for this problem. I'm going to use that as well. So secondly, in terms of maths, we see a lot of the time teachers, they don't have the time necessarily to teach these kind of advanced thinking skills that we see often in high-level math problems like excellence level in NCEA. Maths teachers often, a lot of the not so necessarily really good maths teachers, will just teach the skills. This is how you solve the mathematical problems. What they don't teach is how to translate this question, the context that the question is given to you, because NCEA excellence questions are a lot more than just the maths. They don't teach how do you translate that question into a mathematical term. How do you link that mathematics that you're using there to this other field of mathematics that you then need to do? And then how do you answer the question in terms of what they're actually asking you to give? What does ChatGPT do? It does all of this. It gives you a step-by-step breakdown of how to do that, including interpreting the question, including linking these skills together. These other softwares don't use that. We want to encourage the AI usage here. What else do they say here? They say that students aren't going to talk to teachers. This is going to stunt relationships between students and teachers, right? But firstly, we don't think this is true. A lot of students understand that going to their teachers is a lot better than AI, because firstly, we said that AI gives you a short information, it's quite concise. Students don't necessarily get all they need from that. But secondly, some people don't necessarily follow and read and learn information very well just from reading it off a text. They need a human there so that they can understand their tone of voice, understand what they're saying, right? But even if these students aren't talking to their teachers, we think this is actually really good that they have another opportunity to get feedback, right? Because firstly, teachers are overworked. They're sitting in a classroom with 30 students. There's no way they can individually get to all 30 of those students. So if now there's another way that students can get feedback and get extra learning in ChatGPT, even if it's not as comprehensive as what they're getting from the teacher, it's still something. It's still better than nothing. Secondly, because a lot of kids are shy necessarily going into schools, this is especially relevant because in high schools and tertiary education, students have a lot of teachers. They have 6 different subjects, different teachers for each subject. Those subjects change every year. They don't necessarily get to know their teachers. So a lot of the time the student will be shy, don't really interact with the teacher very much, but they're more likely to interact with this ChatGPT software. Now, what do we see on their side? We see, we explained to you at first all the tools that students have, that teachers already have to detect this AI software. They can just tell from the style. They can compare it to past students' work. They can use AI checking software, right? But what happens on their side of the house? Teachers become reliant on the ban to do the work for them. They think because there's a ban, because we can just ban these students from using that AI software, they're going to be less vigilant on checking, right? Teachers are palming off this responsibility. But secondly, because we explained to you how having this ban, it basically brings awareness to using ChatGPT for cheating. It brings awareness to that issue because you're telling students, look, you can use ChatGPT for cheating. So we get more students using ChatGPT for cheating, which means there's more work for teachers to have to work through. That's so much worse on their side. On our side of the house, we use AI in a beneficial way. As I'm going to move on to my point of clash, benefits of AI usage, but before I do that, I'll take a PY.
Earlier you stated that teachers don't have enough time to teach these skills to students. Well, if they can't do that, isn't the job of the teacher to teach in the first place?
We think it absolutely is the job, but we don't think they're given enough funding in the classroom. One teacher to 30 students is not an acceptable ratio. They need more funding to be able to do that. That's not what this debate is about, though. Okay, benefits of AI usage. What do they say here? They say that this is giving unreliable info to students. The key thing here is that this teaches them critical thinking skills, right? Firstly, the teachers can tell them it's wrong, like they can use the tools that we talked about, they can see the different styles, right? But secondly, it teaches us critical thinking skills, right? Kids will see like the bad return on their marks that they get because we've explained how the teachers will be able to detect that it was using AI. And then teachers, what are they going to do as a result of that? What are they going to do if they see like half of their class has come through and uses inaccurate AI software? They're going to teach more about critical thinking skills. This is something I signaled at the very start of my speech. We're going to see this increased revolution of teaching how do we like take this information that AI is giving us and like put it in terms that are credible and that are valid, right? What else do we hear from them? We hear the impacts of we're getting subpar doctors, subpar lawyers, right? If kids used AI firstly, like they're not going to get into being a doctor or a lawyer anyway, because like these AI softwares, they're only be able to use for cheatings in like internal assessments, right? You can't use them in an external when you're sitting in an exam hall. So these students, like if they're so reliant on AI, they're going to fail. We've explained why they're not going to be reliant on that AI though in our world, right? But secondly, when they get to university, it doesn't hold up anymore because it's not like necessarily all that academic. University is quite rigorous. They can't use ChatGPT very well. It's not that good. So ultimately, we've proved here that like they can't get that impact that they try to tell you about getting subpar doctors, subpar lawyers. What they are going to get though is a generation of students who know how to critically think, who know how to assess and sort information from valid to invalid, right? So now to my split, how this ban halts AI development. So like what does the development of AI look like? It's rapid firstly, it's like very technological, and it's very like skills based. It takes a lot of like knowledge and learning. But how does this ban halt that? Because firstly, kids aren't taught that AI is helpful. They're taught that it's an offense. They're not going to develop a passion for it. Secondly, kids can't actively learn tools to interact with AI in a high level way. They can only learn how to cheat using it outside of school. But thirdly, because tertiary students can't use AI, they've completely forgotten that tertiary like is included in this model. It's literally a major at universities is artificial intelligence. If they can't use ChatGPT for their research within that major, that's so like detrimental to their learning there. So the outcomes here is that we stunt the AI development. Like the future of this field is these children who are growing up and are going to go into it. Because back in the day, they didn't have that as a major at university, right? So now if they can't be using that AI throughout their education, throughout their learning process, they're not going to be able to pick up those subjects. They're not going to study AI to an effective degree. We're leaving AI just to like these old people. It's really harmful. We're not going to see this revolution in the workplace, research and development. And that's why the MOOC should fall.
Good job.
We thank you for speaking for this speech, and we welcome the third speaker of the affirming team, which was the team sustainable.
In order for us to win today's debate, we have to prove to you either one of 2 points of clashes that have transpired throughout today's debate. First point of clash is AI a reliable tool in the first place? Second of all, does AI indeed start learning as we've been saying? But first off, I'd like to clarify a few things. First off, the opposing team would like to use all these arguments as when neglecting AI as a whole. But as the mission says, it is writing AI specifically. It is AI that is used to analyze whole text instantly, get you the answer instantly. And that's just some clarification I just wanted to make. And also something else is that also differentiating the AI and the internet. AI is something that it's artificial intelligence. It forms stuff. It creates stuff. Using the internet to find sources of information is like looking through a textbook. That is the differentiation of it. Because AI, what it uses a broad source of information across the whole internet without it even being reliable or sources of actual information. So that is why we differentiate the two, because AI does the finding for you, whereas using the internet, you have to find the actual information yourself. So first of all,
Point of information.
yes.
Could this AI not be used to find other resources that could help you with your research?
Well, in this specifically, I'll get into that so fast, but quickly, there are better alternatives. First off, point of clash, is AI a reliable tool? What we hear from the opposing side is that kids can use it for research. It is a helpful research tool, and like if you take that away, then all of a sudden these kids don't have the tools to research. Let me remind you, in the current status quo, what we already have is Chromebooks. Chromebooks, a tool used to search up and you find the information yourself. You gather all the sources of information. This is a far better alternative, as you're teaching the student themselves the skills of finding information, rather than having a bot find all the information for you and put it right in your face. And they also, and even though they said that kids can use it for research, they have also agreed. Their first speaker stated along the lines that yes, there is indeed misinformation in ChatGPT. So that is what strikes the heart of this point of clash. Is AI a reliable tool? Is that we both conceded to the fact that it is misinformation, but they like to keep reminding you in the case that this is a good research tool. Second, they stated that it is a reliable tool because it is the future. And as I stated before, is that the future is full with misinformation and unreliableness. So in no way can this be something that is taught to kids, as I will prove later, actually detriments their abilities in the best case scenario if this AI is in fact reliable. And so with all these reasons, and for some of the reasons they even gave, this just proves washed out of the debate that AI is not a reliable tool in the first place. And even if you aren't convinced, and we take them at their best case scenario, we will demonstrate that even in the best case on their side, that it actually stunts the learning of these kids. A few reasons why this would happen. Because as we see in English classes, the way the way education is the way education is framed is that you are teaching kids, especially in secondary school, you are teaching kids skills that they can take when they leave school. And when you use AI, especially when it gathers all the sources and puts it in front of you, says a whole essay, what you're doing, you are actually stunting their skills stunting their skills of finding research, of collecting research, of comprehending what you're learning. All these are stunted because you create a shortcut using ChatGPT. And they also try to make the case that it is easier for teachers to teach students learning, and because they don't have enough time to teach these skills, especially the higher level ones. This is too much time for them on their hands. But as I'd like to remind you, as I stated in the earlier POI, if your job is a teacher and you can't teach, then that's not your job. If you can't teach the subject that you that you had studied for, and you are studied for teaching, then you are not a good teacher. You should not have to rely on AI. Realistically, they try and say when they try to grasp onto this, they say it teaches critical thinking skills. But for all the reasons I gave you, where is the critical thinking? Where is the thinking done? The thinking done by an AI. It is unrealistic the way they use the way they use AI. The way they think students use AI is very unrealistic. In a realistic world where we live in, is that kids would use AI to find the answers. That's how it's always been done. Kids always trying to look for the shortest convenient way. No, because as my first speaker stated, they are time poor. They don't have enough resources, and so they just want to They just want to use answers. That's realistically. Even if they think that it teaches critical thinking skills, I just prove to you that it does not teach those skills at all. And realistically, that it's just used for answers. There's no teaching, there's no thinking that goes into it, there's no learning. You don't develop any skills by using AI. All you do is type a prompt and it will just display to you what this prompt says. And that's why we have proven that AI does indeed stunt learning, even in the best case scenario where everything AI says is correct. And not just to extend the margin a bit, they stated that the ban would be ineffective. Another point of clash is, will this ban be ineffective? They try to make the case that it would be ineffective due to a couple of reasons. Due to the incentive students have to be lazy and be tech savvy. They're more tech savvy. But as we stated, in the current status quo, there are tools to detect AI that are used by teachers. This is used in the current status quo when marking NCA, when marking even in the university level. These AI tools are being used to find AI. And also, the incentive for students not to use it is much greater, because as we stated in our model, the ban would be that you fail this assessment. Nay. And as a student, what's the point of even writing a prompt if you're gonna fail it anyways? That's incentive enough. What will happen? It will force the student, they can't go down this avenue because they'll just fail anyway. So they have to switch to another avenue where they will develop skills. And this is something that you'll only ever see on our side, because on their side, they can just use it whenever they want. The parameters we've put in place allows for students to actually learn from their teachers, allows for students to be incentivized to actually find the sources of information, and overall, students benefit greatly on our side of the nation, whereas on their side of the nation, what it teaches is lazy, bad work ethic, bad for the workforce, bad for their future, bad in general. So this is why you should vote side affirming.
We thank the speaker for their speech, and we invite the third speaker of the negating team to close their team's portion of this statement. Woo!
Let me start by clarifying to you what each team needs in this debate to win. The affirming team needs to prove to you that AI, all uses of it in secondary and tertiary institutions, is bad and therefore it should be banned. We have to prove to you that either the ban will not be effective or that students will be better off with this use of AI. The thing is, what has become a major point of clash in this debate is how students use AI. So, I'll get into that first, but I'd also like to clarify 2 more points of clash of how is AI beneficial to students and how effective is this ban. Alright, first of all, how do students use AI? What the affirming team has presented to you in their case is that students only use this tool to write their entire essays for them. They copy and paste it and hit submit. This is not the case in the majority of cases. We do not have to stand by that use of AI because that is plagiarism. What we do stand by is the use of it in finding resources, in providing a starting point, all right? The thing is, what they have provided to you is an incorrect way of how AI is used in a lot of ways. The AI does not make up misinformation. It gathers information that's already on the internet that is scanned and collates it into one thing for the person who's put in the prompt to understand. We stand by here the way that students use AI in where they use it to find information and then go on to find more reputable sources to then cite in their works. This is what we stand for, and this is what we will continue to stand for and prove to you why this is important to leave this opportunity open to students. So, moving on. How is AI beneficial to students? What has the AFF team told you here? AFF has told you lots of different things. They told you that it stunted growth. But the thing is, they also told you that it did this in the way of lack of understanding, lack of interpersonal relationships, and they just become lazy and lose passion. But the thing is, it encourages growth. It encourages students to find simple to understand information about what they're interested in, and then go on to find more reputable sources to develop their understanding further. They also told you that they used it for assignments and they didn't understand anything that was actually happening. Except we gave you perfectly reasonable examples of where they have to use it for exams and things like that, where they do no longer have access to this, so they use it to learn the information that they need and then apply it in real consequences. We also think that one of the things that is resulting in lack of passion in students is burnout. It's not understanding, not having those personal connections with your teacher because they've got classroom of 30 kids, they can't go to each individual kid and help them understand the entire topic. That is why generative AI is so incredibly helpful, because it allows them to understand more. It makes the workload easier on them while still understanding everything, and they don't become overwhelmed and feel that they can't go to their teacher to clarify things. They now have another pathway to understand things and to get better. Then they brought up the issue of employment. Now, the thing is, as Sar told you in his introduction, AI is the future, and that is what we are facing right now. Employment all across different industries are using AI assistants, are using a generative AI in a variety of things. And so it is so important to teach the students how to use this correctly without plagiarizing it, and to be able to use it in their employment. By restricting this with a flat ban, it is so detrimental to these students, because they will not be able to learn the skills, they will not be able to learn how to use effective prompts to get the information that they need, and they will not be able to be helped. Now, what else can AI be used for these students? Artificial intelligence is also a major career path that a lot of students are considering right now. This went majorly unopposed with AFF, but Luca told you in his split that it stunts the growth of this artificial intelligence. It stunts the growth of these students wanting to go into these fields, because it's also banned at a tertiary institution where they're going to be studying this, where they're then going to go into employment. They need to know exactly how it works in order to be able to develop it, to make it better, to make sure that there's less misinformation, to make sure that it's better for the new students moving forward to be using it. It teaches students information finding skills, because they can find it, they go into ChatGPT, they find different perspectives, and they research those, rather than just researching one thing, and one thing comes up, and they click on that, and that's the only thing they take. They don't consider other perspectives, other ways to look at it, but with ChatGPT, it gives you a range of things. They also gave you examples of doctors and lawyers, but the thing is, both of these have written exams where they can't use this AI, so they're not going to be able to get into these fields just based on their knowledge of AI, because they have to go through other exams, other things that can't just have AI. Alright, before I move on to my third point of class, I'll take a peek.
Earlier you stated that that people that aren't able to pass the written exam for these doctors and lawyers, they wouldn't be using AI, but isn't the students that are using... Oh, sorry, keep going.
Okay, I'll move on to how effective is this ban. Luca responded to this quite a bit, but we have AI tracking devices. This is what they said. They said they'll be banning just the use of it in assignments. We think that what they should be standing for is the complete ban of AI, including in research and all the things that don't actually go into the assessment, because that is what the MOOC says, and that is what they have to stand for. We believe that the model they provided is insufficient, that students should be able to use it for resources, should be able to use it for research, and that the likelihood of them following the ban is so small that it's unimportant, all right? These kids, they're growing up on it now, they've been opened up to this world, they're kind of starting to become more proficient with it, they're not just going to give it up. We gave you so many mechanisms at start, I'm not going to go over them again, but the thing is, students can just circumvent this, they can get around everything. But we do think that that teachers can use it in assignments. We don't think that the ban will work in preventing them from finding resources, but we do think that teachers would be able to find it in assessments, which is what they say we need, all right? We've got AI checkers, but the thing is, by banning this in schools, we reduce the likelihood of people developing better AI checkers to make sure that this isn't being used in assignments. We're stunting the growth of one of the biggest industries ever, just because we don't like students using it in assignments, which they can use it in so many different ways, right? Teachers are recommending it, all right? They're like, they're recommending it to find information so that they don't have to teach so much. This alleviates so much pressure off of teachers, which they're already not getting funded enough. They're not getting enough resources. They're not getting enough time, but they are getting too many students. And so it's so important so that they stand by what they do have to stand by, which is a complete ban on all AI in secondary and tertiary institutions, which is stunting the growth of these students, which is stunting the growth of this AI, and ultimately it must not stand. Thank you.
We thank the speaker for the speech, and we invite the leader of the engagement team to exercise their right of reply.
Affirmative's entire case today and all of the mitigations of the harms that they bring to you are contingent on them proving that schools will be able to regulate and will be able to implement this ban correctly. We inherently shut down this model and the effectiveness of this ban at start as an inherent part of our case, proving that it will only increase the amount of cheating used. We win the debate here, but I'm going to talk about 3 points of clash. Firstly, how do students use AI? Secondly, the future of AI. And thirdly, the effectiveness of the ban. So what do we hear from them? Under their best case of all the things they tell you, we can make the assumption that students copy and paste the information from AI checkers, they plagiarize with no care in the world, right? But what do we tell you here? We tell you that firstly, they still have to read the explanations and the processes on the skill-based questions that the AI gives, because it will give those like explanations and those processes, because it makes up that stuff in real time. It gives you the answer at the same time as it's thinking of it. I told you this in my speech. The only possible ground they make here is that, like, in terms of essays, that they can just the students can just copy it and hand it in and copy what they're given from the AI, and this is plagiarism. But what do we tell you here? We told you that firstly, teachers will be able to tell, through a whole bunch of different reasons, which went largely unresponded to, and that firstly, they can see the writing styles of students compared to the AI, and that secondly, they can recognize the structure and the style that this AI is using, and then thirdly, that they can use AI software, which is rapidly advancing at the same rate as AI is itself. So, we told you that teachers will be able to tell this information. So even these essays that are just copied and handed in, it's likely to only be a one-time thing for these students because they'll see it doesn't work. But secondly, even worse than that, even if you believe that that we don't get that on our side, on their side, teachers are actually less likely to put in the work to identify AI usage. We told you that because of this ban, it's going to make them lazy and it's going to make them rely on this ban. It's going to make them not want to put in the work themselves. We told you that there's going to be more students cheating because of this ban. We told you that this means that teachers are not going to be able to tell the work. We think on our side of the house, we actually get better identification and better regulation of the cheating. In our world, we get, firstly, students are taught to use this AI for productive means. It makes their work more efficient, it saves them time in an already pressured life as a student. But secondly, most importantly, students are taught to differentiate between valid and unreliable sources. This is so important for the future of education, the future of our planet, leading me on to my second point of clash about the future of AI, in that I gave you a whole split point at second on how important development of artificial intelligence is in our world. It's going to be the future, it's going to be the new way that we interact with information, and yet this went entirely unresponded to, right? They haven't engaged at all with the tertiary aspect of the motion in their case. They haven't engaged with the fact that students are now not going to be able to use these AI chatbots as a way to implement their research in artificial intelligence majors. They haven't engaged with the fact that workplaces and academia are going to be stunted in the future because students haven't been able to develop these skills of artificial intelligence throughout their youth. Now, if you can believe all of that information we've told you, you believe that even if they were able to effectively implement this ban, that we shouldn't do it because we need AI in schools. But even if you don't believe that material, then they still can't claim any of their harms because they haven't proved that this ban would even be effective in the first place. What did we tell you here? We told you that the likelihood of students to circumvent the ban was extremely high. They're tech savvy, right? They don't care about the rules. They're likely to just go home and use ChatGPT anyway, use AI software anyway. Like, we think that these students are likely to do that, and we told you that this ban is like not going to be effective because all these information about what these students do. What did we tell you? We told you that, sorry, we told you that like the AI tracking devices that teachers can use here will mean that students, like, if they even do use just ChatGPT, that they're going to be found out for it. So we proved that the ban isn't effective at all. We proved that even if the ban is effective, that it shouldn't be used.
We thank the speaker for the speech, and we welcome the leader of the affirming team to finish today's event.
The motion reads, this House would ban AI writing technology in secondary and tertiary education. What do we hear from side negating? Why are you banning all AI? AI is very useful. Where in the motion, where did in what I just read says that we're going to ban all AI? 2 points in my speech. I think that this debate on whether or not, like, who wins is largely contingent on who's actually able to prove that AI benefits the education system, right? Okay, but first, before I get into that, I want to clear up some clarification, and I want to talk a bit about our model, right? So I think what the negating side is missing here is the fact that on our side of the house, like, we actually incentivize these children to not use AI because they will fail. We talk about this at first app in the large characterization about what students actually look like, what they're likely to be influenced by. Do we hear any characterization about students on side negating? No, we do not. Yet they make assumptions like they're going to look at strategies on how to actually solve these problems. No formal analysis, no reason why these students are likely to do this in the first place. So now that we've got the model out of the way of there's still an incentive to fail, the entire argument about like students can still cheat, right? Even if we have minimal students cheating, which like, yes, it is in the current status quo. When you encourage people, which isn't in the status quo, no counter model provided, to actually use AI, they never actually, this is the point that we have to defeat, is that there is actually no benefits to using AI, to using writing technology-based AI in education. Okay, so what do we hear from side negating? We hear that AI explains problems. You know what else explains problems? Teachers. You know what else explains problems? Like, even if you were to look it up on Google, that's not AI. What do we also hear from side negating? We hear that students are like not lazy and will look at how to do things. However, going back to first app speech, what do we hear? Oh, they will use AI anyway in the current status quo because they don't care about rules. They disrespect rules. So why isn't it the same? It's like picking and choosing which situation benefits on their side. So clearly, this entire thing is wiped out of the debate. So what else do we hear? We hear that it's too much work for teachers and it's a waste of resources. However, we give you many reasons why AI is inherently harmful to students' education. And so therefore, I think to have better doctors, to have better lawyers, to have engineers, to have better engineers, that is not a waste of resources. We also hear that like it's too much work for teachers. But I think our team largely deals with the fact that teachers are meant to be teaching and can't largely rely on students just doing AI in the first place. But I think the entire point where negating's case completely falls is the second that they just assume that students are actually gonna actually gonna listen to all of the steps that AI gives you. We give you plenty of alternatives of other ways students are still able to learn and get the same benefits on our side of the house without AI. We talk about how it starts learning. We talk about how important the fundamental basics of English are, and how allowing this AI in schools puts students at a disadvantage. I don't think this is dealt with clearly enough. We hear from all of the speakers about they said this, but we think this. I don't think that is clearly rebutting on why our case is not true. I think it's simply just going against it for the sake of going against it. This is why I believe we have won this debate. Proud to affirm.
We thank speaking for the speech, and we thank both teams for a great debate. Invite you across the floor and shake hands, and if we can exit the rest of the events to celebrate.
Voice.
That was so much
That was fun.
Bring it in.